I remember standing in Vega's office, watching her flip through photos on her tablet. Look at these ice sculptures. $12,000 each. Worth every penny. $12,000 each. My $12,000 times 10. The client list alone. She zoomed in on a photo of some celebrity whose name I recognized but couldn't place. Do you know how hard it was getting her to come? But when you're celebrating 20 years at the top, you spare no expense. I stared at her as she swiped through more photos of her birthday party. The party she'd thrown with my bonus. The bonus I'd earned through 3 years of 70-hour weeks. The bonus that was supposed to pay for Lark's surgery. Ms. Vega, I said, the words sticking in my throat, about the financial restructuring bonus that was approved last month. Oh, that. She waved her hand dismissively. Company needs, Wren. Priorities shift. Her smile never reached her eyes. You understand. Besides, you won't even miss it. Won't miss it. My daughter might never walk properly again, but I won't miss it. I felt something inside me shift. Not break. No, breaking would have been easier. This was more like watching tectonic plates realign, the landscape of who I was fundamentally changing. Of course, I said quietly. Priorities. She was already back to her photos, dismissing me without a word. I turned and walked out, my footsteps silent on the plush carpet that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage. The accounting department was empty. It was 8:30 p.m. on a Friday. Everyone else had lives to go home to. I sat at my desk and opened my laptop, pulling up the company's financial records. As head accountant, I had access to everything. Every transaction, every approval, every signature, including Vega's. I'm Wren Kassidy, 38 years old, single mother, financial controller at what most people would call a prestigious firm. Before 3 days ago, I was the quiet one, the reliable one, the one who worked holidays and weekends to keep everyone else's bonuses flowing, while my own daughter spent her 13th birthday in physical therapy. Before I go any further with this story, could you please take a few seconds to tell me in the comments where you're watching from? I'm still amazed this reached beyond my own four walls, and seeing your locations helps me remember I'm not alone in what happened. And if you think what I've said so far deserves it, please hit that like button and subscribe. There's more coming, and trust me, you'll want to hear how this ends. It wasn't just the bonus. If it had been only that, maybe I would have walked away, filed a complaint, found another job. But as I combed through those financial records that night, I found something else, something that made my hands go still on the keyboard. Vendor payments to companies that didn't exist, consultation fees for services never rendered, equipment purchases for items never delivered. All approved by Vega, all processed by me. She'd been using me for months, possibly years. I'd been so focused on saving the company that I'd missed what was happening right under my nose. She'd created a complex web of fake vendors, ghost employees, and phantom services, all funneling money directly into accounts I now realized were her own. The realization hit me like a physical blow. I wasn't just a victim. I was an unwitting accomplice. I worked through the night, meticulously tracking every fraudulent transaction. By dawn, I had a clearer picture. Over $2 million. That's how much she'd embezzled in the last 18 months alone. My phone buzzed. A text from my sister Tess. Lark asking when surgery happening. What should I tell her? I stared at the screen. The fluorescent office lights suddenly too bright, too harsh. My daughter. My beautiful, patient daughter who'd spent the last year in pain because of a progressive spinal condition that was slowly robbing her of mobility. Tell her soon, I typed back. I'm working on it. I was. Just not in the way anyone would expect. Monday morning came, and I watched Vega strut through the office, accepting compliments on her legendary birthday celebration. She wore a cream-colored dress that probably cost more than my car, her hair styled in a way that suggested she'd spent hours at some exclusive salon. She caught my eye across the open floor plan and smiled. Not a kind smile. A smile that said, I won. I always win. That's when I decided. This wasn't just about getting my bonus back. This wasn't even about Lark anymore, though she remained my North Star. This was about justice, about consequences. about making someone who thought they were untouchable finally feel the ground crumble beneath their feet. I spent the next 2 weeks building my case. I worked late every night, tracking transactions, documenting discrepancies, printing emails, creating timelines. I set up a secure cloud drive and backed up everything. I recorded conversations when legal. I took screenshots of the accounting system. I became a ghost in my own life. Tess took care of Lark. I barely slept, barely ate. My existence narrowed to a single purpose: documenting every instance of fraud with such thorough precision that not even the most expensive lawyer could dismantle it. Vega noticed nothing. Why would she? I was invisible to her, just another cog in her machine, another stepping stone beneath her designer heels. Until the day I walked into Thorne's office. Thorne was our CFO, technically Vega's equal in the hierarchy, though everyone knew Vega held the real power. He was reviewing quarterly projections when I knocked on his door. "Wren," he said, surprised to see me. "Something wrong with the numbers?" "Yes," I said simply, placing a sealed envelope on his desk, "but not in the way you think." He looked at the envelope, then back at me. "What's this?" "My resignation," I said, effective immediately. His eyebrows shot up. "Resignation? But you're up for partner next year. The restructuring you did saved this place millions." "I know exactly how much it saved," I replied, "and I know exactly where that money went." I left his office without another word, ignoring his calls for me to come back and explain. I had no intention of explaining anything to him. Not yet. Instead, I went straight to my desk, gathered my personal belongings into a small box, and walked out the front door. Nobody stopped me. Few even noticed. Outside, the spring air felt different against my skin. Cleaner somehow. I took a deep breath and called a rideshare to take me to my next destination, the FBI field office downtown. Special Agent Reeves didn't look like what I expected from an FBI agent. No dark suit, no earpiece. She wore charcoal slacks and a navy button-up shirt, her curly hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. Her handshake was firm as she welcomed me into a small, windowless room. "So," she said after I'd settled, "you mentioned financial fraud when you called." "Yes." I placed 3 binders on the table between us. Each was color-coded, labeled, and organized chronologically. "This is everything." She opened the first binder, flipping through the pages with increasing interest. "This is comprehensive." "I'm an accountant," I said. "Comprehensive is what I do." For the next 4 hours, I walked her through it all. The fake vendors, the ghost employees, the fabricated expenses, the money trail that led directly to offshore accounts controlled by Vega. I showed her the pattern, the meticulous way Vega had structured her theft to fly under the radar. And I showed her how my bonus earmarked specifically for my work saving the company had been diverted to pay for Vega's extravagant birthday celebration. "Why didn't you bring this to your company's board?" Reeves asked. "Because 3 board members were at that party," I replied. "They drank champagne that should have paid for my daughter's surgery." Understanding flickered across her face. "This is personal for you." "Yes," I admitted, "but that doesn't make it any less true." She studied me for a moment, then nodded. "We'll need to verify everything, of course." "Of course. And you should know, Ms. Kassidy, that whistleblower cases can get messy. There could be blowback." I thought about Lark, about her bravery through all the pain, about how she never complained, even when the doctors said the window for optimal surgical intervention was closing. "I'm not afraid of messy," I said. Reeves closed the binder. "What do you want out of this?" The question caught me off guard. What did I want? Revenge? Justice? My money back? "I want consequences," I finally said. "Real ones. Not the kind that disappear with a donation or a public apology." She nodded, understanding perfectly. "And I want my daughter to walk at her high school graduation." 2 days later, I was sitting in my small home office when my phone rang. It was Reeves. "We've verified enough to move forward," she said without preamble. "We're executing a search warrant tomorrow morning." My heart raced. "At the office?" "Yes. And at Vega's residence." She paused. "We'd like you to be there. At the office. To help us locate specific records." I closed my eyes, imagining Vega's face when she saw me walk in with federal agents. What time? 9 a.m. Main entrance. I hung up and sat in silence for a long moment. Then I called the pediatric surgical center and scheduled Lark's procedure. When they asked about payment, I told them to bill me. I'd figure it out. That night, I told Lark the surgery was happening. The hope that bloomed across her face was worth everything that was to come. Really? She whispered. For real this time? For real, I promised, brushing her hair back from her forehead. No more delays. Will it hurt? Yes, I said honestly, but then it will get better. Much better. She nodded, trusting me completely. Are you okay, Mom? You look different. I smiled, wondering what she saw in my face. I'm just tired, sweetheart. From all the extra work? If only she knew. Something like that. The next morning, I dressed carefully. Not in my usual work attire, but in a simple blue dress I'd bought years ago for a cousin's wedding. It was the only thing in my closet that made me feel strong rather than invisible. I pulled my hair back neatly and applied minimal makeup. At 8:55 in the morning, I stood outside the glass doors of the company headquarters. Reeves pulled up in a black SUV, accompanied by 5 other agents. She nodded at me as they approached. Ready? She asked. I thought about all the times I'd walked through those doors, head down, focused on making everyone else rich. I thought about Vega's dismissive wave as she stole my daughter's future. Yes, I said, I'm ready. We walked in together, the agents flanking me like an honor guard. The security guard at the front desk started to ask for identification, then saw the badges and fell silent. The elevator ride to the executive floor was quiet, tense. When the doors opened, we stepped out into the familiar open-plan office. Heads turned. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Someone dropped a coffee mug, the crash echoing through the sudden silence. And there, emerging from her corner office with a questioning look, was Vega. Her eyes found me first, narrowed in confusion. Then she saw the agents, the badges, and something flickered across her face. Understanding, then disbelief, then the beginning of fear. It was everything I'd imagined and nothing like it at all. Reeves stepped forward, her voice clear and authoritative. Vega Moreau? I'm Special Agent Reeves with the FBI. We have a warrant to search these premises and seize financial records related to an ongoing investigation into wire fraud and embezzlement. The office erupted in whispers. Vega's face drained of color. This is ridiculous, she said, but her voice lacked its usual confidence. There must be some mistake. No mistake, Reeves replied, handing her the warrant. Ms. Kassidy has provided extensive documentation of your activities. Vega's eyes snapped to mine, wide with shock and something else. Betrayal? How ironic. You? She hissed. You did this? I met her gaze steadily. No, Vega. You did this. I just made sure everyone would know. The agents moved past her into her office, beginning their search. More agents appeared from the elevator, heading to the accounting department, the server room, the records storage. Vega stepped toward me, her designer heels clicking on the hardwood floor. Do you have any idea what you've done? Who I am? Who I know? I didn't flinch. I know exactly who you are. That's the problem. A crowd had gathered now, employees watching in stunned silence as their untouchable leader faced something she couldn't charm or bully her way out of. This company will be ruined, she said, her voice rising. Jobs will be lost. Is that what you want? What I wanted was my bonus, I replied calmly. The one I earned saving this company. The one you stole for ice sculptures and celebrity appearances. Her face changed then, realization dawning. This is about money? Your bonus? I can get you another bonus. It's too late for that, I said. And it's not just about the bonus anymore. It's about the $2 million you've embezzled over the past 18 months. It's about using me to process your fraudulent transactions. It's about making me complicit in your crimes. The whispers grew louder. From the corner of my eye, I could see Thorne standing in his office doorway, his face ashen. You're making a terrible mistake, Vega said, her voice dropping to a threatening whisper. When this is over, You'll never work in finance again. I'll make sure of it. I leaned in slightly, keeping my voice low enough that only she could hear. When this is over, you'll be in federal prison, and my daughter will be walking again. That's all that matters to me now. Before she could respond, Reeves returned from Vega's office, holding a laptop. Ms. Moreau, we need you to come with us to answer some questions. I want my lawyer, Vega snapped. That's your right, Reeves nodded. You can call them from our office. Two agents stepped forward, flanking Vega, not touching her, but clearly indicating she needed to move. For a moment, I thought she might resist. Instead, she straightened her shoulders, lifted her chin, and walked toward the elevator with as much dignity as she could muster. As she passed me, she paused. This isn't over, she murmured. I watched her disappear into the elevator, surrounded by federal agents, and felt nothing but a quiet certainty. Yes, I said to the empty air, it is. As the elevator doors closed on Vega's furious face, the office erupted. Questions fired from every direction. Phones came out. Someone was already filming. I stood motionless in the center of it all, suddenly aware of how exposed I felt. Thorne pushed through the crowd, his face a mixture of shock and calculation. Everyone back to work, he commanded, though his voice lacked its usual authority. This is a legal matter. We'll have an official statement later. The crowd reluctantly dispersed, breaking into whispered clusters. Thorne turned to me. My office. Now. I followed him, conscious of the stairs tracking my movement. One of the FBI agents, not Reeves, but a younger man with close-cropped hair, fell into step beside me. You don't have to speak with anyone if you don't want to, he said quietly. It's fine, I replied. I expected this. Thorne's office was all glass and chrome, with a view of the city skyline that the company paid an extra 30% in rent to secure. He closed the door behind us and dropped heavily into his chair. Explain, he said. I think the FBI agents made it pretty clear. His jaw tightened. Don't play games, Wren. How long have you known? About the embezzlement? 3 weeks? About my bonus being stolen? Almost a month. He ran a hand through his salt and pepper hair. Why didn't you come to me first? I studied him, this man who'd been my superior for 3 years, who'd praised my work while underpaying me, who'd promised partnership while expecting 70-hour weeks. Would it have made a difference? I asked. The question hung between us. We both knew the answer. The board will want to speak with you, he said finally. I assumed they would. This could destroy us, you know. The publicity alone. The publicity of your CEO stealing millions? I interrupted. Yes, I imagine that would be bad for business. His eyes narrowed. You seem different. I am. Before he could respond, his phone rang. He glanced at the screen and grimaced. The chairman. He looked back at me. Don't leave the building. This isn't over. As if everyone today needed to remind me of that fact. I returned to the accounting department, where the FBI agents were methodically reviewing files, both digital and physical. My former colleagues watched me with expressions ranging from awe to suspicion to outright hostility. Echo, who'd worked beside me for 2 years, approached cautiously. Is it true? She whispered. About Vega? Yes. And you? She hesitated. You turned her in? I provided evidence of financial crimes, I corrected. She turned herself in by committing them. Echo's eyes widened slightly. I've never heard you talk like this. I've never had reason to before. Throughout the day, I answered questions from FBI agents, directed them to relevant files, explained our accounting systems. I pointedly ignored the text messages accumulating on my phone from board members, executives, even Vega's assistant. Around 4 in the afternoon, Reeves returned. She found me in the small break room, staring out the window at nothing in particular. Miss Kassidy. I turned. How did it go? She's been formally charged, Reeves said. Her lawyer got her released on bail, but she's surrendered her passport. The judge set a substantial bond. She can afford it, I said. Maybe not for long. Reeves sat across from me. We've frozen several accounts based on your evidence. The forensic accountants are already confirming what you found. plus potentially more. More? This may go back further than 18 months. She studied me. Have you been approached by company executives? Yes. They want to talk. Be careful what you say. This case is solid, but corporate damage control can get ugly. I nodded. I'm aware. We'll need you to testify if this goes to trial. When it goes to trial, I corrected. A small smile touched her lips. After she left, I gathered my things and headed for the elevator. I'd given them enough of my time today. Lark was waiting, and tomorrow would bring challenges of its own. As the doors opened on the ground floor, I nearly collided with Pike, the company's general counsel. His normally immaculate appearance was rumpled, as if he'd dressed in a hurry. "Wren," he said, blocking my path. "I've been calling you." "I've been busy. We need to talk. The board is meeting tomorrow morning." "Send me a calendar invite," I said, stepping around him. He caught my arm. "This isn't a joke. There are serious implications here. For everyone." I looked pointedly at his hand until he released me. "I'm aware of the implications. I've spent 3 years cleaning up this company's financial mess while watching executives award themselves bonuses that could fund a small country." "That's business," he said dismissively. "No," I replied. "That's greed. What Vega did was crime. I know the difference." "The board wants to make this right," he said, lowering his voice. "Your bonus plus compensation for any inconvenience." I almost laughed. Inconvenience? Is that what we're calling federal crimes now? "Wren, be reasonable. My daughter's surgery is scheduled for next week." I cut him off. "A surgery that should have happened months ago. A surgery that might now be less effective because of the delay. Tell the board they can start by covering that, plus all future medical expenses related to her condition." His eyes widened slightly. "I can't promise." "Then we have nothing to discuss." I walked past him toward the exit. "The company's reputation," he called after me. I stopped and turned. "Should have been considered before you let Vega run it like her personal piggy bank." Outside, the late afternoon sun felt warm on my face. I took a deep breath, feeling lighter than I had in months, despite the uncertainty ahead. When I got home, Tess was helping Lark with homework at the kitchen table. My daughter's face lit up when she saw me. "Mom, you're home early." I set down my bag and joined them. Special occasion. Tess gave me a curious look. I'd told her nothing about what was happening, not wanting to get her hopes up. "How was school?" I asked Lark. "Boring, except for science. We dissected a frog." "Sounds messy." "It was awesome," she grinned, then winced slightly as she shifted in her chair. The pain never left her completely these days. "I have news," I said, taking her hand. "The surgery is happening. Next Wednesday." Her eyes widened. "For real this time, you promise?" "I promise." She threw her arms around me, and I held her close, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo. "How?" Tess mouthed over Lark's shoulder. "Later," I mouthed back. That night, after Lark was asleep, I told Tess everything. About the bonus, the embezzlement, the FBI, about Vega's arrest, and the company's scramble to contain the damage. "Holy," she breathed when I finished. "Are you in trouble?" "Possibly. Probably. I don't know yet." "Was it worth it?" I thought about Vega's face as she was led away. About the decades of arrogance and entitlement that had led her to believe she could take whatever she wanted without consequences. "Yes," I said simply. "What happens now?" "Now we focus on Lark's surgery. The rest will sort itself out." But the rest wasn't content to wait. The next morning, my phone rang at 6 a.m., a number I didn't recognize. "Ms. Kassidy, this is Mira with Channel 7 News. We understand you were instrumental in uncovering a major fraud scheme at..." I hung up. 10 minutes later, another call. Different station, same question. By 8, reporters were outside my house. I called Tess, who came through the back door to help get Lark to school without facing cameras. "This is crazy," Tess said as we watched through the blinds. "How did they find you so fast?" "Someone at the company must have talked," I said. "Maybe Vega's assistant. Maybe someone in accounting." "What do we do?" We ignore them. They'll lose interest eventually. My phone buzzed with a text from Thorne. Board meeting 10 a.m. Your presence required. I glanced at the reporters outside. I need to borrow your car. Tess raised an eyebrow. Seriously? You're going in? I have to, this is just beginning. I slipped out the back, drove to the office, and entered through the parking garage to avoid any press that might be gathering at the main entrance. Security was tighter than usual, with guards checking IDs at every checkpoint. The boardroom was on the top floor, a space I'd entered perhaps twice in my entire time with the company. Today, it was filled to capacity, all 12 board members, plus Thorne, Pike, and several executives I recognized but had rarely spoken to. As I entered, the conversation halted. 20 pairs of eyes tracked my movement. Ms. Kassidy, said Hawk, the board chairman. Thank you for joining us. His tone suggested I'd had a choice. I took the only empty seat, directly across from him. We've been discussing the situation, he continued. Obviously, it's unprecedented. Not really, I said. Corporate fraud happens every day. It's just usually better hidden. A muscle in his jaw twitched. Perhaps I should be more specific. We're discussing your role in this matter. My role was providing evidence of criminal activity to the proper authorities, I said. What's there to discuss? Pike leaned forward. There are protocols, Ms. Kassidy. Internal channels. The company has ethics, hotlines, compliance officers, all of whom report to executives who attended Vega's party. I finished for him. The party funded by my stolen bonus. An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. About that, Hawk said finally, the board was not aware of any irregularities regarding your compensation. Irregularities, I repeated. Is that what we're calling theft now? We're prepared to rectify the situation, he continued, ignoring my comment. Your bonus will be paid in full, with interest. Additionally, we're prepared to offer a retention package to ensure your continued employment during this transitional period. I almost laughed. You want me to stay? You're the most knowledgeable person regarding our financial structure, Thorne said, especially now that Vega is indisposed. You mean now that she's facing federal charges for stealing millions from the company? Several board members shifted uncomfortably. The situation is complex, Pike said. There are legal considerations, shareholder concerns, potential class action lawsuits, none of which are my problem, I interrupted. They could be, he replied, his tone sharpening, depending on how cooperative you choose to be. There it was, the threat beneath the offer. Are you suggesting my job depends on helping you minimize Vega's crimes? We're suggesting, Hawk said carefully, that your future with this company, indeed in this industry, will be influenced by your actions in the coming weeks. I looked around the table, at these powerful people with their expensive watches and tailored suits, people who'd benefited from the same system that had protected Vega for so long. I don't want a future with this company, I said simply. The statement hung in the air, unexpected and absolute. That's unfortunate, Hawk said finally. Perhaps you're being hasty. I'm not. I've already accepted a position elsewhere. This was a lie, but they didn't need to know that. However, I do have 2 conditions before I consider helping with your transition. They exchanged glances. Hawk nodded for me to continue. First, the company covers all medical expenses for my daughter, past, present, and future, related to her spinal condition. Pike started to object, but Hawk cut him off with a gesture. And second, a formal acknowledgement of what happened. No press release calling this an accounting irregularity or praising the company's proactive response. The truth. Vega stole money. For years, and you all missed it. That would devastate shareholder value, one board member protested. So will federal indictments naming board members as co-conspirators, I replied. The room went very still. Is that a threat? Pike asked quietly. It's an observation. The FBI has access to all company records now, including board minutes approving unusual expenses, including emails about creative accounting practices, including the names of everyone who attended certain events funded by embezzled money. I hadn't actually seen such evidence, but based on their reactions, it existed. Hawk cleared his throat. We'll need to discuss your terms privately. Of course, I stood. You have my number. As I turned to leave, Thorne spoke up. There's one more thing you should know. Vega has been calling board members, making accusations. I paused. What kind of accusations? That you were involved. That you helped hide the transactions. That this is retaliation for a personal grudge. I felt a cold weight settle in my stomach but kept my expression neutral. The evidence speaks for itself. Evidence can be interpreted different ways, Pike said. Not this evidence, I replied, and walked out. The next few days passed in a blur of FBI interviews, calls from journalists I refused to answer, and preparations for Lark's surgery. The company agreed to my terms with surprising speed, suggesting the situation was even worse than I'd thought. The night before Lark's procedure, as I sat beside her hospital bed watching her sleep, my phone buzzed with a news alert. Breaking. CEO charged with embezzlement found dead in home. My hands shook as I opened the article, scanning for details. Vega hadn't committed suicide, as my first horrified thought suggested. She'd apparently suffered a heart attack. The stress, her lawyer told reporters, of false accusations and character assassination. I set the phone down, unsure how to feel. There was no satisfaction in this news, no sense of justice, just a hollow awareness that some reckonings arrive in unexpected ways. The surgery lasted 8 hours. 8 hours of pacing hospital corridors, of clutching Tess's hand, of bargaining with whatever forces might be listening. When the surgeon finally appeared, her face told me everything before she spoke. It went well, she said. Better than expected. The nerve damage was less extensive than the imaging suggested. I collapsed into a chair, tears coming without warning. She'll walk? Normally? With physical therapy and time, yes. She should regain full mobility. 2 weeks later, I watched Lark take her first steps without assistance since the surgery. Tentative, wobbling steps that nonetheless carried her forward under her own power. The physical therapist beamed as Lark reached the end of the parallel bars. I did it, she cried, her face flushed with triumph. You did, I agreed, blinking back tears. You absolutely did. That evening, I received an email from Special Agent Reeves. The subject line, Update. The investigation was expanding. 3 board members had been subpoenaed. Forensic accountants had traced embezzlement going back 5 years, totaling nearly $4 million. The company's stock had plummeted. A class action lawsuit had been filed by shareholders, and my whistleblower status entitled me to a percentage of any funds recovered. I closed the email and went to check on Lark, who was doing her therapy exercises in the living room. Does it still hurt? I asked, watching her carefully bend and straighten her leg. A little, but it's a different kind of hurt now, she said, more like working muscles than something broken. I nodded, understanding exactly what she meant. 3 months later, I started a new job at a smaller firm where I worked reasonable hours for reasonable pay. Lark continued to improve, graduating from walker to crutches to walking unassisted. The FBI case resulted in multiple indictments, including 2 board members and Pike, the general counsel. The whistleblower payment arrived on a Tuesday, a check for just over $800,000, enough to pay off our mortgage, enough for Lark's college fund, enough to finally breathe. I took Lark and Tess out for ice cream to celebrate. As we sat in the small shop, watching Lark swing her legs freely beneath her chair, a simple movement that once seemed impossible, Tess raised her spoon in a mock toast. To karma, she said. I shook my head. To consequences. Lark looked between us, confused. To ice cream, she suggested. We laughed and clinked our spoons together. To ice cream, I agreed. I don't think about Vega much anymore. Sometimes I see news updates about the ongoing legal proceedings against her former allies. Sometimes I receive calls from attorneys seeking testimony, but mostly I focus on what's ahead rather than what's behind. There's a different kind of power in rebuilding than in revenge, in moving forward rather than looking back, in recognizing that sometimes the greatest victory isn't watching someone else fall, it's rising yourself. If you've stayed with me through this whole story, thank you. It wasn't easy to share, but something about putting it into words makes it feel finally, truly over. If anything in my experience resonated with you, please hit that like button, leave a comment letting me know what you would have done in my position, and subscribe if you want to hear more stories about finding strength in impossible situations, because sometimes the quietest person in the room is the one you should watch most carefully. The one who's taking notes, building evidence, and waiting for exactly the right moment to speak their truth.